Welcome back, it's me, Lou. I'm here for another action figure unboxing and review. And today from McFarlane Toys, we are looking at the Cyberpunk 2077 action figure V, right there. Okay, so this is an older action figure. It came out a little over 2 years ago. This came out way back in 2020. If you're a video gamer, you're probably very familiar with Cyberpunk 2077. It was produced by CD Projekt Red, who are famously known for working on the Witcher video games. This video game was highly anticipated for years. And unfortunately, when it first came out 2 years ago, it was marred by all these crazy glitches and bugs. But throughout that time period, CD Projekt Red was really good about addressing some of the performance issues and this, constantly updating the game, bringing it up to the standard which it is at right now. Maybe like a month or two ago, they updated the game with a pretty huge update, and I think early sometime next year they're going to release the last DLC. If you're a fan of the property in general, there was the new anime series, which I think is on Netflix. I think it's Cyberpunk Edge Runners, which is on, I think, Netflix in the States. And if you're old school, you're probably very familiar with the tabletop role-playing game Cyberpunk Red, which this is kind of based off of. But today we're going to take a look at V, and no real reason other than I just kind of want to, talk about this action figure and just, give it a glance. So the character V is actually the protagonist of the video game. This is your avatar in the game. It's kind of interesting because, the character is actually, when you start up the game, you actually get to design what the character looks like. The initial version of V that was showcased prior to the game coming out years ago featured a female protagonist. But for whatever reason, McFarlane chose to release, the male version of the main character. But like I said, in the video game, you actually can tailor how your character looks like. So this is kind of more so like a stock representation of the character. I do believe that Dark Horse Comics, in their line of collectibles and statues, I do think they make a female version of the character V in statue form, in addition to the male one. It's unfortunate that McFarlane didn't give us a female option for this character. And, I think that this line produced by McFarlane was kind of short-lived. I think they kind of missed, some great opportunities to dive deep into the game world and give us more characters. Right, so we have Cyberpunk 2077 V. The package design is really cool. I have a background in graphic design, and immediately when I saw the box design, I just kind of fell in love with it. I love the color scheme of the stark contrast between black and yellow. I love the blue trim and the really thin line strokes here for the graphic design elements. I think that's pretty neat. The background kind of features almost like a brick wall with some graffiti on it. And I love the shape of the box window. It's kind of cool how it's not just like a traditional rectangle. It kind of takes this kind of cool cyberpunk influenced form. And on the back is pretty cool also. They kind of take the action figures but kind of present it in a comic book illustration style. So you have the Keanu Reeves, Johnny Silverhand character on our left, and then we have V over here on our right. It features 22 moving parts. And it's cool. I remember finding these action figures at, I know Walmart had them. I can't remember if Target carried them also. I want to say yes, possibly. It's kind of cool at the time, prior to the release of Cyberpunk 2077. The game was actually delayed a couple of times. So I think months in advance when the game was originally supposed to come out, there was kind of this small blanketing of merchandise at retail outlets. So in addition to action figures, you had a couple of other cool novelties. I remember Target carried a line of Cyberpunk minifigures and other collectibles around the property. But the timing of the property was kind of off because the game was delayed a couple of times. So it was kind of weird because you'd have like the figures and other accessories available at the store, but the game was pushed back in terms of its release date. So by the time the game came out, it not that it didn't feel special anymore, but the timing between the merchandise and the video game was just kind of like skewed off by some months. All right, so we're going to take a look at this guy, but this one's going to stay mint in box because I actually happen to have one loose. And let me grab that real quick. So here is the loose version, or at least my loose copy of the action figure. So this is V from Cyberpunk 2077, the main protagonist, your avatar in the video game. And the reason why I have a loose copy of this figure is because I bought this to keep it in my desk, to play around with. And it's a really cool figure. I dig this one a lot. And let's remove the accessories. So you get the action figure right here. You get the Cyberpunk display base, which I think is the same display base that we get like with all McFarlane figures. I believe this is the same style that we get with the DC Multiverse. And some of the anime lines. The only thing difference is the logo screened on it. He comes with his crazy cyberpunk katana right here. It's a very loud looking piece of pink plastic. He does come with a pistol, which you can store on his... Oh no, wait. I made that holster. Okay. I made a holster for him using a zip tie. Just because, for whatever reason, there's no way of storing the pistol on the body of the figure. Because he comes with 3 weapons, but he only has 2 hands. So when you display it, he's either going to hold the katana and one of the firearms, or both of the firearms and no katana. So for me, I kind of just made a jerry-rigged holster for the pistol. And the pistol's nice. It's a compact design. It has some silver highlights on it. It's cool. It's kind of like realistic, but like, futuristic at the same time. Likewise, the assault rifle I think is pretty sick looking. It looks awesome. And the paint detail on this one's really well done. It's kind of like the cartridge here is black. Has some brown trim on the stock and the body, and then it has like a gunmetal finish with some like silver dry brushing to give it like a weathered down effect. It's a really, really nicely done weapon. It looks awesome. I love this thing. As for V himself, let's take a look at the figure. This figure stands in at about 7 inches. In terms of like scaling with other McFarlane figures, here's a McFarlane Batman figure. This guy makes an appearance like in every video nowadays. Like I pointed out in like some of my recent videos, the older McFarlane figures, they're a lot larger than the more recent ones. Much more recent McFarlane figures, they're kind of in line with this guy in terms of their scale. The older McFarlane figures are they're just bigger. They're taller and they just feel bigger. Speaking of DC and the DC Multiverse, I think if you're a customizer, I think this figure would be a great base for like a Red Hood action figure. Especially with like the coat, the brown coat and the black shirt and pants. All you need to do is do a head swap and you have a pretty cool looking version of the Red Hood. It'd be almost like a cyberpunk version of the Red Hood. So the head sculpt on V is pretty well done. He kind of has like these scars on his face, and that's not like battle scars. That's like kind of like part of the design process in the video game. It's almost kind of like an aesthetic, or like it's almost like the equivalent of tattoos. Like in the video game, you could give your guy these weird looking like scars, which I think are kind of like circuits on his face. So it kind of like reiterates that cyberpunk feel. As you can see, he has his eyebrows shaved, with a little line in them. Nice work on the stubble. Pretty cool looking haircut. Nicely sculpted. The inside of his lapel or collar on his coat. In the video game, I think this is supposed to be like LED lighting, so it kind of like lights up the guy's head. Yeah, so it's a very cyberpunk looking kind of design. And there's certain design elements in here that kind of evoke like the anime Akira and the live action Blade Runner movie. Nice finish on the pants. As you can see, they look a little bit distressed and worn. Beautiful wrinkles and folds. And then he kind of has like these futuristic looking high top shoes. In terms of his articulation, V's head rotates left and right. He looks down about there, looks up about there. His arms rotate. I'm curious if he has that ball socketed butterfly joint right there, much like a lot of the DC Multiverse figures. So his arms rotate to go out. He has double pinned elbows. And then he kind of has that archaic McFarlane wrist joint where it's just like a ball. It looks kind of horrendous. You know, McFarlane, they nowadays are doing a better job of the ball joint for the wrist. He has a cut mid-torso, so he could kind of like roll around. He could swivel at the waist, and his legs kick up. Not right about there. And then they kick outwards as well. Again, it utilizes the same kind of engineering as a DC Multiverse figure with the legs. Double pinned knees. And then standard ankle and toe articulation. So if you're into the DC Multiverse line, you'll feel really at home with this action figure. You know, a lot of the engineering and articulation is exactly the same as standard McFarlane superhero guy. So. And it's cool that McFarlane does this. You know, they have a long history of producing action figures based off of video game properties. Whether it was Gears of War, God of War. Did I say that? Yeah, there was Gears of War. They worked on God of War. They had a line of Call of Duty action figures. You know, if you're old school, you'll remember the line of Halo action figures that McFarlane did for many years. And this is cool. You know, I dig it a lot. I'm curious to see if they're going to dive into the anime property and give us action figures based off of the Edge Runners anime, because I think there's some opportunity to produce some really cool looking characters and designs there. Especially since they already dabble in anime, you know, action figures. You know, seeing as how they already had the Cyberpunk property, it'd be nice if they did, you know, dived into the anime stuff. Likewise, with the release of the upcoming DLC next year, I really hope they revisit the action figures and give us more characters. Because there's characters from the video game that, unfortunately, you know, they never got produced. You know, we only got this guy, Johnny Silverhand, and Takamura. But it's a great looking figure, as you can see. It's just for me, it's a cool display piece. I have this on display next to my Xbox in my entertainment console. Or I mean in my entertainment center. I have it next to the console in my entertainment center. That's what I meant to say. You know, it's a really sick looking action figure. You know, so if you're into, like, even if you're not into the video game, I think this is a cool figure to have overall. You know, you could easily blend this into like some of the DC line of action figures. You know, just say it's a thug working for the Joker, or do a head swap and say it's the Red Hood. It's really well done. Alright, so on a scale of 1 to 10, how do I rate this guy? For me, probably like a solid 8.5 to a 9. You know, the game's been out for some time now, and I don't know, I still think this figure holds up. You know, the articulation and designs, you know, is very much in line with what we're getting nowadays from McFarlane, so it doesn't feel dated at all. If anything, the figure might have felt short or smaller when it first came out. But as seeing as how most McFarlane figures are starting to scale down to like this size, it makes this guy feel a bit more appropriate. All right, so with that being said, let's wrap this one up. Once again, my name is Lou. If you're new to my channel, welcome. If you are a returning viewer, subscriber, thank you so much for your continued support. I greatly appreciate it. So until the next video, be safe, take care of yourself, buy lots of toys, and most importantly, be happy. And I'll see you at the next one. All right, later.